The fault lines of the Middle East were completely shattered in one night, as a maelstrom of emotions, lies, tears, vows of revenge, and cries of celebration swept across the region. While Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi rallied Iranians worldwide, the regime's patchwork commanders and administrators were already losing their grip. On one side, millions of Iranians danced in the streets, celebrating the collapse of decades of strict rules, oppression, and economic isolation. On the other, the remnants of a regime, deeply shocked by the loss of their absolute leader, wept openly and swore vengeance to the entire world. Yet, the Iranian army stood on the brink of changing sides, poised to turn against the very regime it once protected. Welcome to Strategic Horizon, where we unravel the complex geopolitical shifts that are reshaping our world. In the Middle East, a decades-long era is coming to an end. For Iranians, this is no longer merely a street protest or an uprising. It is a direct civil war, a battle for regime change, and a matter of national existence. After Khamenei's elimination, the cries of freedom and joy rising from the streets of Tehran now mingle with the war drums echoing from the regime's underground military headquarters. What happened on the night of March 1st is not just the end of a 4-7-year-old regime. It is the first domino in a long, dark chain reaction that will fundamentally shake global energy markets, rewrite the diplomatic balances of great powers, and initiate a bloody reckoning within a nation. The war is no longer beyond the borders. It is right in the heart of Tehran. But what truly happened that night, and what shocking revelation could fundamentally alter the course of this unfolding drama? The Iranian people have taken to the streets as one body for Shah Pahlavi. Not only in Tehran, but from London to Washington, millions of Iranians are celebrating. Iranian society has struggled for survival for many years, trapped in an invisible pressure chamber. The anger, suppressed by the state's ideological apparatus, gave way to an unprecedented, uncontrollable, festive atmosphere upon confirmation of the leader's death. This was not merely a political celebration. It was a psychological declaration of the collapse of the theocratic walls built step by step since 1979. People filled the streets, heedless of the security forces, chanting, "Khamenei is dead, Iran is free," and reveling in their liberation from the regime. At that very moment, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi published his historic manifesto. He likened Khamenei to the tyrannical figure of Zahak from the Shahnameh, declaring, "Ali Khamenei, the Zahak of our time who oppressed Iran's finest sons and daughters, is gone." He then addressed the regime directly, stating, "Surrender to the Iranian nation, declare your loyalty to my plan and our transition framework." The response in the streets was immediate. Pro-freedom Iranians chanted, declaring that the opposition had united around Pahlavi and that the goal was not only to overthrow the regime, but to restore the monarchy. In Nurabad, the people took control of the city. Protest marches were even held near military bases. The fact that large segments of society have overcome their fear threshold and poured out into the streets en masse is a sociological turning point. The inability of the Revolutionary Guards and besieged militias, which the regime has always relied on, to intervene immediately and harshly against the crowds, is the clearest indication of how the paralysis in the chain of command is reflected on the ground. This breakdown created a unique window of opportunity for civil disobedience to grow. Those who were forced to leave their country years ago took to the streets to celebrate this historic moment, organizing themselves through social media. So much so that people were advised on digital platforms to celebrate the weekend by eating at an Iranian restaurant, listening to music, and showing solidarity with Iranian culture. Pre-1979 secular and modern Iranian photographs re-entered circulation, a psychological weapon rejecting the theocratic regime and expressing a desire to return to the modern world. The promises that Khamenei would be danced upon proved that the regime's legitimacy in the eyes of the people had long since been reduced to zero. And now the element of fear has also completely disappeared. Let's pause for a moment and look at the big picture. Because the most critical front in this war is neither the F-35S flying in the sky, nor the warships in the Strait of Hormuz, nor the crowds in the streets of Tehran. The most critical front lies within the Iranian army, in the minds of its officers. Pahlavi's manifesto was not a request, it was an ultimatum. A man who says, "Hand over the government to me," is not making a request, he is offering an alternative. And this alternative is now triggering the same question in the minds of every officer, every commander, every Revolutionary Guard in Iran. Which side will I take? Why is this question so devastating? Because it is not ideology that will determine the answer, but mathematics. This is where Pahlavi's genius must be understood. He didn't just call the people to the streets, he built a golden bridge to the army. The message, "Surrender and be forgiven," is the oldest and most effective weapon of revolutions. Wars that could not be won by military force were often won by this single sentence. The words Pahlavi chose skillfully addressed Iran's deep mythological and cultural codes. On one side, a regime whose commanders had been killed, whose leader had been buried, whose air defenses had been destroyed, whose people had taken to the streets. A temporary leader, Erupts, for whom no one was prepared to die. A defense minister who had been dismissed, meaning the regime did not even trust its own generals. The constant risk of being branded a traitor. On the other side, a crown prince hailed by the people, shouting, "Long live the king," backed by the diaspora and supported militarily by the US and Israel. And a clear message to the military, law enforcement, and security forces. Your weapons must be used to defend the great nation of Iran, essentially an offer of amnesty to those who switch sides. However, the real strategic focus of this manifesto was not in the section addressed to civilians, but in its appeal to the security bureaucracy. Pahlavi directly addressed the army, law enforcement, and even security forces, urging them to use their weapons not to preserve the regime, but to protect the Iranian people. This dilemma is not new in Iran's military history. During the 1979 revolution, even the Shah's most loyal generals switched sides at the last minute. Part of the army retreated to their barracks, declaring, "We are with the people." Now, the same scenario has the potential to repeat itself in reverse. This time, the regime's army could retreat to their barracks in response to Pahlavi's call. This is precisely why the Iraqi statement that new commanders have been brought in to replace them is empty bravado. Appointments can be made, but to whom will the appointee be loyal? To a regime whose roots have been severed, or to the millions in the streets? We know that many officers previously supported Pahlavi, with some turning out to be direct agents. It is inevitable that the new commanders will make the same calculation. Is it possible to save this ship, or is it time to jump ship? These words are a masterpiece of psychological warfare. This message went down in history as the most critical psychological move that could trigger armed forces to switch sides in a possible civil war and spark a debate among officers. Will we shoot the people, or will we abandon the collapsing regime? This seed of doubt, planted in the mind of a soldier whose commanders have been killed, who has not yet formed a bond of loyalty to his new leader, and who is facing millions of his own citizens in the streets, is far more deadly to the regime than Israeli missiles. In stark contrast to these historic celebrations in the streets, a dangerous sense of vengeance mixed with deep mourning is spreading among the theocratic elite in the deepest institutions of the state and in the minds of its radical supporters. When a state loses not only its leader but also its spiritual guide, it means the cement holding that state together has cracked. The official announcement of this collapse was made on Iranian state television. An anchor, dressed in black and unable to hold back her tears during the live broadcast, announced to the world that US President Trump and his allies would pay dearly for this death, and that revenge would come soon and mercilessly. These tears were not only an expression of grief over the loss of a leader, but also an outward manifestation of the deep fear and uncertainty felt by elements of the regime about their own future and the vows of revenge that would follow. But these threats did not remain mere hysterical words on television screens. They were taken to the extreme in diplomatic and military symbolism. A red flag of vengeance was raised on the dome of the Holy Jamkaran Mosque near the city of Qom, associated with the Mahdi, the expected savior in the Shiite faith. This flag, raised after the assassination of Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani, is a clear declaration of war, signifying that the bloodshed will not go unavenged, and that justice will be served by the sword. The Khatem al-Anbiya General Headquarters, one of the regime's strategic decision-making bodies, promptly issued a stern statement. The statement emphasized that the principles of resistance that shaped the nation would not be destroyed by the death of one person, and that Iran could suffer heavy blows but would never bow to US and Israeli hegemony. Vows of revenge turned into concrete threats. Iran's National Security Council said the US and Israel will be hit with a force they have never encountered before. The Revolutionary Guards announced a 5-year war plan. Sputnik published a map showing the 2,000-kilometer range of Iranian missiles. Trump responded immediately. If Iran retaliates harshly, it will be hit with unprecedented force. And he addressed the Iranian people. I made you a promise, and I kept it. The rest is up to you. We will be there to help. Western sources sent a message to the Iranian people. We are not your enemy. Those who rule you are. The Revolutionary Guards, the striking force on the ground, have already begun issuing video messages, threatening new missile attacks against both internal and external enemies, stating that what is to come is only the beginning for everyone. The regime is turning to a strategy of maximizing violence in order to stay in power. The regime has made a move to start a civil war by pouring its remaining loyal apparatchiks into the streets with "Death to America" slogans. Its last propaganda card. But make no mistake, the regime's vows of revenge are not empty words. It still has thousands of ballistic missiles, hundreds of drones, a proxy network stretching from Iraq to Yemen, and the desperation of fanatics who have lost everything. A desperate enemy is far more dangerous than a rational one. A regime with nothing left to lose can set everything ablaze. Iran's National Security Council said they will be hit by a force they have never encountered before. The Revolutionary Guards announced a 5-year war of attrition plan. Proxies in Iraq joined the war. The Houthis returned to the Red Sea. 6 countries were subjected to a barrage of missiles. The war in the region is just beginning. These threats are deadly, but, and this is a very big but, there is no longer a state mind behind these threats. There is no strategic planning. There is no coordinated chain of command. Khamenei's death and the purge of 40 commanders mean that the hands firing these missiles cannot communicate with each other. Iran hitting its own ship in a friendly fire incident was the most striking symbol of this command chaos. The proxies are also cracking. While some militias in Iraq are being thrown into battle, Asaib al-Haq announced its readiness to disarm. Groups like Lebanon's Hezbollah and Yemen's Houthis, seeing the heavy losses suffered in recent years, made a simple calculation: loyalty to Iran or survival. The axis of resistance, each atom, has begun to orbit on its own. This is the crux of the entire analysis. What will stop these threats, the missiles, the proxies, the vows of revenge, the 5-year war plan, is not the Pentagon's aircraft carriers, nor Israel's F-35S, nor Tomahawk missiles. They can strike the regime's body, but what will kill its spirit is the Iranian people themselves. Trump said it plainly: I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you. This is the clearest endorsement of regime change ever uttered by a US president. But it also marks a boundary. The US will strike from the air, provide intelligence, but it is the Iranian people who will fight in the streets. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the Iranian people directly with a perfectly timed message. In the coming days, thousands of locations targeted by the terrorist regime will be neutralized. We will create the necessary conditions for the liberation of the courageous Iranian people. Therefore, I'm addressing you again, citizens of Iran. Do not remain idle, because that moment will come soon. That's the moment when you need to take to the streets to show yourselves with your beliefs. This statement is not ordinary political rhetoric. By positioning the movement in the Iranian streets as part of his military strategy, the Israeli leader aims to shift the regime's security forces' attention inward rather than outward. Pahlavi sits squarely at the center of this strategy. Externally, US-Israeli air power is destroying the regime's military capacity. Internally, the people's civil resistance is eroding the regime's social base. And Pahlavi's call to surrender is dissolving the last card: armed force from within. This triple siege, air power, popular support, and the dissolution of military loyalty is the formula for how regimes have fallen throughout history. This is how Ceausescu fell in Romania. Iraqi says, everything is very well organized. But one sentence from Pahlavi, your weapons are for protecting the people, is stronger than all of Iraqi's institutions, because that sentence speaks to an officer's conscience, and conscience is stronger than orders. This unique geography, where the heart of history beats, is at a complete breaking point. It will either be dragged into a civil war where groups whose commanders have died fight each other with oaths of revenge flying through the air, or it will wake up to a new dawn after a 4-7-year theocratic nightmare. Whichever scenario unfolds, one truth remains unchanged. The rules, maps, and power equations of the Middle East as we know it have lost their validity forever as of tonight. The final word will not be spoken by missiles or bombs. It will be spoken by the millions in the streets of Tehran. What are your thoughts on this matter? Share them in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Strategic Horizon for more in-depth analysis. Thank you for watching.